So for this recorded discussion will be about moral theories. So of course, moral theories are frameworks for understanding, analyzing, and guiding ethical behavior. So here are some of the most well-known moral theories. But before that, um, again, we try to define. Here we have moral theory that explains why a certain action is wrong or why we ought to act in certain ways. In short, it is a theory of how we determine right and wrong conduct. So, are moral theories descriptive or prescriptive? Most take moral theories to be prescriptive, and the descriptive accounts of what people do are left to sociologists and anthropologists. Philosophers, then when they study morality, want to know what is the proper way of determining right and wrong. So, um, in presenting a moral theory, are we merely describing how people, in their everyday doings, thinkings, form a judgment about what is right and wrong? Or are we prescribing how people ought to make this judgments? Moral theories are typically prescriptive. They tell us how we ought to act or what we should value. They again provide guidelines or rules for behavior based on ethical principles. While some elements of moral philosophy might describe human behavior or moral beliefs, but the aim is to prescribe what is right or wrong, or good or bad. Uh, Moral theories go beyond observation to give us frameworks for making ethical decisions. So we have here theories of morality. So again, we have covered this about moral subjectivism, determined by you or the subject about what feels is right or wrong based on your personal assessment and judgment. And again, the second, cultural, of course, particular set of principles or rules that are relevant to the culture. Ethical egoism, your self interest. Divine command theory. Right and wrong come from the commands of God. Many claim that there is a necessary connection between morality and religion. So, virtue ethics, traditional virtues, feminist ethics, right and wrong are to be found in women's responses to the relationship and or caring. So this just simply suggests that we need to um, consider the self as at least partly constructed by social relations. Like we must be grounded in moral emotions like love, sympathy, leading to the relationships of caring. Then utilitarianism by overall goodness of the consequences. Kantian theory by rationality. Contractarianism, the principles of right and wrong are based on which everyone in society would agree upon informing a social contract. So it can be agreement among individuals. Like this contract establishes the rules and institutions that govern their interactions and society as a whole. So next we will be focusing on Aristotle again and Saint Thomas Aquinas. So the philosophical inquiry into ethics began with ancient Greeks, although they always focusing or they are busy at the time about trying to find an answer to where did everything come from, like from the question on whether human is capable of attaining knowledge or not. Right next to it is they try to inquire about the function of a man as a human person. So they have to determine the social responsibility and the goodness of the human's social practices. Okay, Aristotle wrote his Nicomachean Ethics. The ultimate purpose cannot be understood without understanding the place of reason in ordering on one's life. Considers that morality is not merely a matter of knowing the good, but actually doing the good habitually, and we become what we are not, what we know, but what we do. So for Aristotelian ethics is not only a science or knowledge that deals with the absolute truth. Rather, uh, it must be considered an art of living well. So again, on his Nicomachean, he focused on the purpose of human life, like each and everything that exists for some purpose. According to him, self-realization is the highest good attainable by man, also termed as daimonia or well-being or happiness. Daimonia is sought for its own sake. All other ends are sought because they are perceived to be instrumental in one's flourishing. So this happiness is not the same as possession of wealth or pleasure. While pleasure is good, it is not the ultimate good. Happiness is the natural outcome of the active exercise of functions. For Aristotle, considers it to be an activity, a way of living one's life. So it is possible for one to have an overall happy life. Every human person is naturally seeking the attainment of happiness. The full realization of functions refers to fulfilling, realizing, actualizing, and developing one's nature with all its potentials. Like if we can just focus on being good people, the right actions will follow effortlessly. Again, eudaimonia, it is as the proper end of man, not some kind of inactive state, but actually something that one does. For Aristotle, our chief good is not something we merely possess in mind, but something that we continually actualize in practice. So, friendship is also a necessary part of the happy life. There are three types of friendship: of excellence, of pleasure, and of utility. So, friendship of excellence is based upon virtue, and each friend enjoys, contemplates the excellence of his or her friend. Since a friend is like another self, contemplating a friend's virtual help oneself in the practice of virtue. For, of course, ourselves. So, based in mutual respect and admiration for each other's character and virtues. It's deep and lasting bond. So for friendship of excellence, it's deep and lasting bond where both individuals wish the best for each other for their own sake. And what else? So uh, of pleasure and use are the most changeable forms of friendship, since the things we find pleasurable or useful tend to change over a lifetime. So if we are going to differentiate these two for pleasure, is that the friendship is grounded in the enjoyment and pleasure derived from each other's company. So you will bond over shared activities, interests, and this is short lived, as it will fade when the shared interests change. So, friendship of utility or use, of course, it is based on mutual usefulness. Both parties gain something from the relationship, like being business partners or study buddies, so it is practical and can be temporary as long as the utility remains. So again, this friendship of pleasure and utility, if friendship forms out of mutual love or you have interest to certain things, or food, drinks, and later turn or change, then your friendship would likely dissolve. Again, if a friend is merely out of utility, then that friendship will likely dissolve when it is no longer useful. Threefold nature of man. So each of this must be fulfilled, as the realization of each is accompanied by a state of pleasure and happiness. So for Aristotle, he held that the soul has two parts, rational and irrational. And the irrational should be closely united with the body, which is the vegetative. Yeah, it refers to the physical body which is cultivated by wholesome food and proper exercise. The body needs food, drink, work, and rest in order to survive and to keep oneself physically fit. So again, having two parts in the soul of a man, rational and irrational, which is having this irrational closely united with our body. The same goes for human, we're animals. So all the stuff that would indicate proper functioning for an animal holds true for us as well. We need to grow, be healthy, while the sentient is the desiring part. Man, as full of senses, has sentient nature. Man's sensual feelings and emotion must be fully developed through appropriate sex activity within the limit of his social conventions. One needs to make his feelings and emotions fine to satisfy his senses. Then, rational human beings are rational animals. The full realization of their vegetative and sentient keeps them longing for more lasting satisfaction. One develops his rational nature in the pursuit of scientific knowledge, philosophical truth, political activity, etc. Therefore, for Aristotle, upon the realization of man's highest nature, there is good happiness. So, of course, again, irrational. Again, we are rational animals and social animals. So, our function also involves using reason and getting along with our pack or community or group. Then, the determinant of morality. So, again, the golden mean is central in the self realization ethics of Aristotle. Full exercise of functions regarding the development of man's vegetative and sentient. Reason seeks the balanced course between too much and too little. So, again, Aristotle argued that nature has built into us the desire to be virtuous. And of course, having a virtue just means doing the right thing, the right time, the right way, in the right amount, toward the right people. But there's no need to be specific because if you're virtuous, you know what to do all the time. You know how to handle yourself, how to get along with others, you have a good judgment, you can read the room, and you know what's right and when. An action is considered good if the action is done in accordance with the rational principle. And such action can be considered a virtuous act. The next is Saint Thomas Aquinas, his natural law ethics. Um, Aristotle had a strong influence on Aquinas. So part of Aristotle's thoughts on virtue ended up in the natural law theory. So the natural law theory holds that there are moral laws found in nature and discernible by the use of reason. St. Thomas' philosophy began with a standpoint of faith. He is known to be the one who Christianized the philosophy based on his theories and ways. His perspective presupposes the existence of God, who is the author and the goal of all reality. So, he introduced God as the creator and the source of the beingness of man in the world. Like Aquinas' goal was to find a way to synthesize faith and reason, to connect the insights of reason with the commands and faith. So, according to him, there exists a natural law which is the interpretation of man. And in his view, the source of moral law is reason itself. In its operation, reason recognizes the basic principle do good and avoid evil. Additionally, believes that we can never achieve complete or final happiness in this life. And final happiness consists in beatitude or supernatural union with God. So he asserts that what is human good is which is suitable for and proper to human nature. So whenever an act is suitable to human nature, as such, then it is good and it must be done whenever it is not proper to human nature. However, then it is evil and it must be avoided. And we not only need the virtues, we also need on here God to transform our nature so that we might be suited to participate in this supernatural union with God. So we have here three natural inclinations of man. So, self preservation, we are inclined to preserve our life. Self destruction, first of all, is unnatural as far as Saint Thomas is concerned. This urge us to care for our health, not to kill ourselves or put ourselves in danger. So, again, self preservation just dealings with others, and we have here the third propagation of species. So, of course, in self preservation, as rational being, a person is under a basic natural obligation to protect his or her life and health. So, putting one's life in danger and harming oneself must be considered wrong. Because again, we have the inclination or tendency to preserve ourselves. So, any act that promotes health is considered to be natural and by nature, sorry, as morally good. So just dealing with others, reason by nature leads us to treat others with the same dignity and respect that we accord ourselves. Any act of injustice is against human nature. So any indignities, degrading of others inhumane acts are considered by nature evil. So propagation of the species, perpetuate our species, which is viewed as a natural good. We are obligated not to pervert this natural inclination. The reproductive organs are by nature designed to reproduce, to perpetuate human species, and any intervention against must be evil. So any form of contraceptives would defeat the very purpose of reproduction, inasmuch as it destroys the reproductive organ's reason for existence. So the artificial contraception is considered intrinsically evil, but methods of natural family planning may be used as they do not usurp the natural way of conception, like the calendar method, cervical mucus, basal body temperature. As I have mentioned earlier, Aquinas was influenced by Aristotle, so echoing the views of Aristotle. Like Aquinas held that the moral good consists in following the innate tendencies of our nature. We are again biological beings. We tend by nature to grow, mature. We ought to preserve our being and our health by avoiding risk and doing what will make us healthy. So, furthermore, as sentient animals, we can know our world through physical senses. We ought to use our sense of touch, smell, taste, etc., and develop and make use of this to appreciate those aspects of existence that they reveal to us. We ought not to do things that injure this sense. We reproduce our kind, of course, we intercourse, and this is what nature means or meant for us to do, according to this slide. And determinants of morality, object, the act itself. So I will just read it first. All circumstances are conditions which, when added to the nature of the moral act, will affect its morality. It answers the question of who, what, where, by what means, why, how, and when. And end of the agent. The end here is taken in the sense of end or purpose of the agent or the doer. Since human being has reason, therefore he is capable of determining whether his action is good or bad. So for Aquinas, there are three factors that can help human person determine where his action is to be considered morally acceptable or not. So again, object or the end of action, if the object conforms to the norm of morality, then the object is considered to be good. Like in this case, the end of the action is the natural purpose of an act. And for circumstances, this means that a given circumstance will either mitigate or aggravate the goodness or badness of a particular action. And lastly, the end of agent, the reason why the agent acts. So for St. Thomas, a good act with a bad motive makes the moral action bad. Likewise, a person may not employ an evil means in order to attain a good end. He believed that the morality of an action depends on the ends. Human acts are good if they promote the purpose of God and His honor. So we may be asking, why is it that others are still doing evil deeds? Is this what they call conscience really coming from good God? Or is it just a product of the people's upbringing and personal development? If one's conscience is to be based on his personal development, then it is different from St. Thomas. And conscience can never be the absolute norm of morality because it is subjective or personal. So it will be ethical relativism in disguise. So moral standards here for natural law ethics are derived from, again, human nature and natural order. Just remember it, the actions are right if they fulfill natural purposes.